Welcome, welcome to Creativity in Focus, a live video podcast where we highlight an artist and its art every single week, and this week is no different than the others. But before I interview my special guest today, I want to suggest a few things for you, if you can. The purpose of this podcast is exactly to highlight artists and create more visibility to them. So we ask you to, if you like what you see, share. This podcast never goes away wherever you're watching. You might be watching on creativityinfocus.com, which is the best experience. You may be watching on YouTube, Facebook, anywhere out there. You can share this with other people. Some of the platforms allow you to give hearts and likes. That helps us a lot because it helps create visibility for what we're doing. Most social media platforms, they do look at the interaction that a video has in the beginning to decide if they show to other people or not. So by giving like, leaving comments, you are always helping us. We are not going to try to sell anything during this podcast, so it's very safe for you to share in groups as well. If you know groups of artists, especially today, illustrators, well, share in those groups because it's going to be very good information for all of them as well. And we are live for a very cool reason. We love interaction. We love you to interact with us. Wherever you're watching, there is a video either beside, the video, there is because you're watching. There is a chat box, either beside the video or below the video. Look for that. That's the best place for you to interact, not only with other people, but with the invited guests this week. So if you have a question to the artist, do ask, because we want to lead this podcast to where you want to go, okay? That's basically my two announcements. We now begin Creativity in Focus. My special guest today is Brandon Pope, and Brandon Pope is an illustrator, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I illustrate.
You illustrate, good.
I do lots of things, but yeah, mostly illustration.
Okay,
So
I want to know about the other things as well. But before we go there, let me show you a few of Brandon's work so you get familiar with his style. And Brandon, while we show the pictures, tell us a little bit about what inspired you to make that picture, what is made with pen, whatever you use. So the first one we have here is this gorgeous whale.
Yeah, so this is a sperm whale, which is one of my favorite animals, and it's pen and ink, and then it's watercolor over the top of that. And this it's about probably 2 or 3 inches tall and 4 inches wide, and it's quite small. And it's something that I started to do. I've been going to various markets and shows and trying to sell some of my work, and people are more apt to buy a smaller piece because it's easier to find a place for it, and it's a little bit cheaper for people to buy. And it's an original piece of artwork, and I think it's pretty neat to have an original piece of artwork. So that's why I started doing these small pieces. And I just go to like a thrift store and get a teeny tiny picture frame and do a quick drawing or a painting or something inside there. And it's more accessible to a lot of people.
To a lot of people, correct. Whales are also one of my favorite animals. I actually, during the night, I put some noises just so to calm my brain and sleep. And whale sounds is one of my favorites. I love them.
Yeah.
Let's see another picture of his work.
That's another whale.
Okay.
I like whales a lot. You mentioned whale sounds. Sperm whales. I love animals. I've always loved animals, and I like the facts. I like reading the books and watching the nature documentaries. So sperm whales are one of the loudest. They're actually the loudest creature on the planet. And you don't really think of them as being that loud because they're always underwater. But I saw this documentary. It said if you are underwater in front of a sperm whale and they do clicking, and if it clicks and you're right in front of it, it'll like scramble your organs because it's so loud.
Wow.
So don't swim too close in front of a sperm whale.
Well, they're pretty scary just because of the size.
Yeah, they're the largest animal in the world that has teeth.
Oh, really?
Another fun fact about sperm whales. I love, they're my favorite animal.
And let's see one more. So you guys get really acquainted. Okay, we have a compilation here. Frog, is that a slot?
The one on the right is a tortoise.
A tortoise, okay.
And then there's an orangutan and a quail. And that's some more of the smaller pieces, in the tiny frames. So they're all 4 inches or less. And
they're all pen?
Yeah, so they're all drawn in pen, and then I do a wash in watercolor for the background.
Oh, cool.
And like I said, I love animals, so the frogs are another one that I'm a big fan of. I don't have as many fun facts about frogs as I do about whales, but that's a poison dart frog from the Amazon rainforest, and so I ever since I was a little kid, I had the little plastic dart frog toys, and just the colors and the patterns on them were so cool.
Really? I had real toys.
Oh yeah?
I had real frogs. Yeah, several of them actually.
Cool.
and so I had my terrarium, and I would hide that from my mother. So sometimes if I had to go out or something, I would put in a drawer or something so she wouldn't find it. And she did, and then so it was interesting. So tell me a little bit about the other things that you do. You said you do a lot of things.
So yeah, I do. Recently with my wife, I took a watercolor painting class at Bountiful Junior High School.
Okay.
It was just continuing community education, and this was one of the things that I did in that class. I think I never. People ask me how long it takes to do. Like, how long did it take you to draw this thing or to paint this thing? And I've never timed myself, and I never know how to answer that question. They're like, oh, how long did it take? And I was like, I don't know. I was just having a good time doing it. I didn't think about how long. I never timed it. So, but I've spent longer on this piece than I have probably on anything else that I've ever done, and that's in watercolor.
Did you like experimenting with watercolor?
Oh yeah, I absolutely loved it. I took to it like a duck to watercolor. Or a frog, perhaps.
Yeah.
I don't remember what species of frog this is. I think it's from India. It was out of a book that I got from the library.
That's so cool. What's the message here? I notice in a lot of yours you have short phrases, right?
I really like comic books and cartoons and little comic strips, and so I love word bubbles. I think they're really fun. It's something that I like to do because it makes it unique, because I don't know how many other 1,000 artists in the world can paint a picture of a frog, but none of them are going to give him a word bubble that says "Lead me be." And so that's "Lead me be" is a phrase I've actually used in a couple different things in the past, and there's no real like meaning to it or a lot of story behind it. There's certain phrases and words that I like the way they sound, and I like the way that they look written on a page. And that's, like I said about the word bubbles, I just think there's so much you can express, just like the size and the shape and the color. And like I said, I read a lot of comic books where there's a lot in a word bubble besides just the words, and I think they're really fun and they're really interesting.
You mean visually there's a lot as well?
You can communicate a lot besides just what's written down in the bubble.
That's cool. That's very cool. Guys, don't forget, this is an interactive podcast, so if you have any questions and comments, send it over here so I can ask Brandon. Brandon, you said you like comic books. Is that how you got started? Tell me a little bit about the process, how you got started.
So yeah, people will ask me, how long have you been drawing, or when did you start drawing? And I've never actually said this to someone because I'm not that sassy, but I said, I think in my mind, when did you stop drawing? Because every little kid, you give them crayons and they love to color and they love drawing and coloring. And for me, it was just something that I never stopped doing. I don't at what age people stop drawing. It depends on the person, but it's something that ever since I got my first crayon, I've always loved it. And it's something that I've always done. All my notebooks.
You never stopped.
Yeah, never stopped. So.
But did you have any formal training, or it was just practice?
Yeah, I took a few art classes here and there when I was younger, but yeah, like I talked about comic books, most of how I taught myself how to draw was by looking at the comic books that I liked and seeing the ways that the artists, where they put the lines and what shapes and positions and the anatomy. I learned it all from looking at comic books. Spider-Man was especially my favorite, and The Incredible Hulk. Those were the two I liked the most. And I spent a lot of time just reading them normally, and then I would go back and I would look at how they put each picture together and like I said, the lines and the shapes and how they fit together. And that's how I taught myself how to draw, was by drawing Spider-Man and that sort of thing.
That's
so
cool.
yeah, that's.
So you illustrate as a business as well, am I correct? You sell your pieces.
I do.
Tell me a little bit on how you started doing that. How was the feeling of selling your first piece?
That's one of my favorite feelings in the whole world, is when when I create something and someone comes in and they see it and they like it. That's like the best high that I can get, is to create something that someone else enjoys. And so that's kind of what made me want to sell my art and bring it to these fairs and markets, was so that I could experience that and to share what I've created with people.
Do you also sell online?
Yes, I have an Etsy store.
Okay.
And I haven't updated it in a while,
okay.
So I should do that tonight.
So you do online, and you also go to markets, local markets, right?
Yeah, this weekend is actually my last week at the Salt Lake Farmers Market, and so I have these little tiny frames you can see here, and I do T-shirts printed with my drawings on them.
Like this one that you're
wearing?
Yeah,
this one I'm wearing here. It's just a potted plant.
Plants are cool?
Plants are cool. So the way I choose like what I want to draw or what I want to put on a shirt is I make what I want to see. So I love birds, are one of my other favorite things to draw. This one here you see is it's a great gray shrike, which is another fascinating animal. You want some fun facts about the shrike? Yeah. So they live on the East Coast of the United States mostly, and they will take like grasshoppers or sometimes even mice and lizards and other birds, and they're carnivorous, and they'll get these animals and they will stick them onto a thorn on a tree or a spike on like a barbed wire, and they'll keep them there, and so the animal is still alive. It's a little macabre. It's a hardcore bird, and so he'll come back and eat little bits of the animal at the time, fresh meat off of this, but it's stuck onto this thorn or a spike. So they're pretty metal in that regard, but they're also very beautiful. You know,
but you like to work with black and white a lot, right?
Yeah, that's for the smaller pieces that I mentioned. I do black and white a lot, just because it's faster. And you know, if you're doing something small and quick that you're trying to sell for cheap, just to get pieces out, that's an easy way to do it.
So when you say fast, how many pieces do you create in a week or in a month?
It depends. Sometimes I will do 4 or 5 in a single day, and sometimes I'll go weeks without doing anything. It's just, it depends on how motivated I feel at that time, or how many I have left if I need to make more to sell more.
And is this your full-time occupation, or?
My full-time occupation is I'm a graphic artist.
Okay.
So I work for Inkware Screen Printing. That's where I print all my shirts.
The shirts, okay.
So I got the connection there. That's actually how I got the job. Was I had a lot of art and stuff that I wanted to put on the shirts, and I noticed that they had listed this position as a graphic artist, and so I do a lot of fun stuff there too. Less illustration, more graphic design, logos, and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's a lot of fun working there. I love being able to use my passion and my skills as an artist to make money.
Yeah.
So this, like, as my illustration and painting, and that's kind of a side business as of right now. Hopefully it will develop into more where it can be my primary means of income.
So when you see it developing to become something else, what do you see? Because you are a smart cookie, right? You not only make the drawings and they're gorgeous, but you think about the size, not only because it may be cheaper, but also because we are living in smaller and smaller spaces. So big pieces, of course, they are harder to sell. But you also turn that into other products as well, right? Like the T-shirts. Do you have anything else, and what are your plans?
Yeah, I have a few T-shirt designs that I'm selling. I have some stickers with drawings that I've made. Some buttons, like the little circle pins. I got those. I'm working on a comic book right now, actually.
Oh, cool.
Back to comic books. This is I brought a picture of my main character here.
Ooh.
His name is Kerman.
Kerman.
And he's a frog warrior.
Oh, nice. I like that.
You can see him there. And I've just finished writing it, so I've written the first issue, and so I'm just about to start drawing. It's 26 pages long, the first issue, and so hopefully I'll have it ready by the end of the year.
How are you coloring this?
This piece here is colored with Copic markers, but the comic book itself I will be coloring digitally in Photoshop because it's less expensive than buying 100 Copic markers.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna use up all your greens pretty fast when you're drawing a frog. So yeah, I've done a little bit of digital art, digital illustration, but I do like having my hands on the piece. It gives me more of a connection with the piece, and I can put a lot more of myself into it. If I'm holding the pen and I have the piece of paper versus in a digital format, I feel a little more disconnected from the piece.
I know the feeling.
So,
you know that my daughter's very first and only job was coloring books.
Oh, cool.
Digitally, yes. So tell me, what's the main plot for Kerman?
So it takes place in the future, and the ice caps have melted because of global warming, and so the entire world is flooded, and all that's left is these swamps. And so
hot as hell and humid.
Yeah, very humid. And so these frog people have evolved into more humanoid forms, and he is the defender of his tribe of frog people, and so he has to, whatever threats may come. Whatever threats threaten his tribe, I guess. It's his duty and responsibility to protect his people, and so that's the basic gist. And there's.
So does it have an arch enemy?
It's a spoiler alert. I can't tell you.
Oh, you can't tell that.
No, not yet.
So you'll
have to buy the book when it comes out.
I bet that you're totally right. And you have 26 pages conceived already in the process, right? You're going to take care of all creation, and then you are going to go to a publisher.
So I've been working with a publisher. The name of their company is Velleity Studios, and they have published.
Are they local?
Yeah, they publish a lot of local artists, local comics, and so the one that they are probably most famous for is Salt City Strangers, which is a superhero team based in Salt Lake City. That's really fun. I liked it a lot, and I was lucky enough to meet these people at a Comic-Con. That I was taking some workshops about self-publishing, because I had this idea for Kerman, and I had never actually written anything before. I'm not much of a writer, but all of a sudden, the inspiration hit me, and it all came flowing out. So I had this idea, and I wanted to get it out there into the world, and so I went to this workshop about self-publishing comics, and it was taught by one of these guys from Velleity Studios, Andrew Malin. And I came up to him after, I was taking notes and learning as much as I could, and I came up to him after, and I was showing him my ideas, and I was like, this is my character, this is my idea for a story, and they liked it so much that they said they would like to work with me on it.
Fantastic, that's so cool.
So, and that's, like I said, that's the best feeling I can ever get, is when you show something that you are excited about, and other people get excited about it.
It's
that just
an
makes
extreme validation.
Oh, absolutely. I love it.
Yeah. Guest 310 is asking, other than shirts, do you do prints of your work, or is it all original?
I have some prints. This frog here is available in prints. I did a series of prints last year for Halloween, but they're all sold out now. But I did bring the originals.
That's a good problem
if you want to take a look at those. It was.
This is from the Halloween?
Yeah, this is it's a series I did for Halloween last year.
Do you mind showing here?
Oh,
like
yeah.
you did with the frog?
So I apologize to whoever asked this question. They're no longer available. unless you want to buy the originals. But I also this is a fly.
A fly.
Ha. And this is actually an outfit that I own with the jacket and the Alice Cooper T-shirt.
Oh.
And so another one of my influences is punk rock. I like listening to it. I really like the attitude.
And Alice Cooper.
I have a lot of Alice Cooper is one of my favorites.
I went to this concert once.
Did you really?
Many years ago.
That's on my bucket list, is to go to an Alice Cooper concert.
Yeah, my parents didn't want, because they had this thing that he would eat snakes and pigeons and whatever else. But it was fun.
Yeah. So I did a series of monsters. So this is a fly. This is sort of a swamp monster.
Okay.
And so these are all kind of quasi self-portraits, because like I said, this is an outfit that I own. This is another outfit that I own with this jacket. And then this is a set here where there's the vampire and then his bat form.
All monsters wear tennis shoes. And yeah, and all from one specific brand.
This is one of my favorites from that specific series. Just
it's kind of a werewolf, or
it's a vampire bat.
Vampire bat.
If you see, it's
That's
the same.
How much I know about monsters.
It's the same character. You see, he's wearing the same jacket and the same jeans. And so, vampires can turn into the more vicious monster form.
I think they're sexier without turning into the monster form. And this last one?
And then this is a Frankenstein. Yeah.
That's cool. So you sold the original of all this?
These are the originals here. I've sold all the prints that I made. It was a limited edition for Halloween last year. Nice. And I actually just barely sold the last few of them last week.
Very cool. Leslie's asking, where do you find inspiration to draw and create new characters?
Like I said, punk. I don't really get inspiration for specific characters from punk rock, but I get like the aesthetic. I really like leather jackets and denim jackets. I'm really excited for fall, so I can start wearing all my jackets again. I have a collection of a lot of jackets. So like all these characters I just put up are all wearing cool jackets. So punk rock music I like a lot. Nature is one of my biggest influences, because I drew, the frogs and the frog people, and just myself, because like kind of everything that I do is like a quasi self-portrait. All the monsters that I just showed you they're like a little bit of me.
So which side are you putting out then?
Sorry, that?
Which side are you putting out in those characters? Which side of you are you putting out?
Just you feel different and like an outcast sometimes, and I think that there's a lot of beauty in ugliness, which sounds like an oxymoron, but I love ugly things. And I like I like to make things ugly on purpose. I also love beautiful things. Like that's why I love drawing nature. But so there's like the ugly side of myself, or the ugly side of people. There's a lot of inspiration to be drawn from there. The character for Kerman's, like his friend, his sidekick. He's got a lot of that kind of punk rock look, with the leather jacket and the big hair.
Is he also a frog?
No, he's a human. So there's a few humans left in the world of Kerman, but the flooding has taken many of them out. And so
they didn't pay attention. There were lots of warning, global warming, global warming.
Yeah, it's a little too late.
That's cool. I like this. I actually think outcasts rock, and it's super interesting to me. Maybe because I'm one myself.
Yeah.
But I think it's a different way. Now, what I notice is every time you talk about the animals, you've done some research on that. You know their behavior. Is it the behavior that also triggers the inspiration for you? Like this little guy, he's an evil guy. He's kind of a masochistic bird, right?
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I chose to draw the Shrike, is because it has that unique behavior. This other one here, I'm going to move it over to scoot it. This is a Boreal Toad, which is actually an indigenous species to Utah.
Oh.
But they are endangered. And so, and this is another kind of one of those things where I think there's beauty in ugliness, because they're lumpy and they're slimy, and they're not what a lot of people would traditionally consider as beautiful.
But they're responsible for the balance we have.
Yeah, and so there's a fungus that's threatening the population in Utah, and it's causing a lot of problems. So the Hogle Zoo, they focus on conservation of a few species, and one of them is the Boreal Toad. And that's one of the reasons why I chose the Boreal Toad, is to kind of bring awareness to that, because I do love animals and I love the environment, and I want to do what I can to help conserve these endangered creatures and bring attention to that.
That's awesome. You should look at the plaque in my car when you go out.
Oh, yeah?
I'm a huge animal advocate. You have no clue. I think this kind of work is so important, but what I'm asking inside of my mind is this. When you're in the farmer's market or any show, what is the conversation that you have when you're selling a piece? Does it go to that level or not? It goes, oh, it's pretty, oh, it's ink. Sometimes
it does and sometimes it doesn't. It depends on who's asking. So there's a lot of the ones I've done for these smaller pieces have been birds. So I get a lot of birds enthusiasts and like bird watchers who come and talk about the different types of birds that they recognize. There was a lady who worked at the University of Utah. She was a parasitologist, but she studies pigeons and the parasites and all kinds of stuff about pigeons. So I was talking to her for a long time about just the different kinds of birds that we liked and the reasons that we liked them. And she talked about she works with pigeons all day, and a lot of people think pigeons are like trash birds, and they're like they call them rats with wings. But if you look at a pigeon, they're beautiful, like the iridescent feathers on their necks and just the patterns on their wings. And sometimes they eat trash, but
yeah, but
hey, so do I.
Utah has a very cool bird society, actually. Lots of people do that, and National and I, we actually a couple of years ago, we did an audio documentary about the birders in the field, and it was super cool. We have amazing, I love raptors, so Utah is great for that. I want to ask more about who do you sell to, but Melissa Terlizzi, which, by the way, is one of our instructors at Curious Mondo, and she sculpts reptiles.
Oh, I love reptiles.
So the class was about turtles, but she has some amazing frogs. Anyway, I agree 100%. The beauty in ugly. Flaws tell a story. Love the frog. Yeah, that's so true. I believe there is no right or wrong on anything. There are all the shades in between. And I think any artist understands that, right? Because you're really looking what's odd in here that I can highlight. And that's what makes it beautiful. You told me about the people that like birds. Who is usually your customer?
I have a wide variety of different things, because I have like these animals, and then I have the monsters, and I have the T-shirts with it. A few different types of there. So I try to appeal to as many people as I can. If you're trying to sell something, you got to appeal to a broad audience. Like I said, I make stuff that I want to see, and stuff that if I came to a farmer's market, I would buy. And so my target audience is just like-minded people. And so sometimes it'll be a child who's begging their mom to get one of these, this monster or this T-shirt, and sometimes it'll be an older lady who I have a shirt with a bee on it, and she comes and tells me about how she loves to garden, and so
she's a beekeeper.
Yeah, she's an apiary, and so there's the ways that the things that I create connect. It's different for every person. I talk about with my brother a lot, actually, is that art is subjective, and what the artist put into it is not necessarily what someone who comes to look at it will get out of it, which is one of the things I love about art, is because you see something and the connection that you have with it, and the connection that you get with the artist through that is something that's very personal and unique, and there's no other way for that to happen. Mm-hmm. So I'd say like if I had to specify a target audience, just people like me.
People like you, that's good. And do you think there's a gender that buys more than the other in your art or not?
Certain, like I said, certain parts of it. I think a lot of women like the T-shirts that I do, and then, well, actually, I'd say mostly like if I haven't kept that careful records of who buys what.
Well, the reason
just off the top of my head, I'd say probably more women buy.
More women than buy.
Yeah.
I was talking to Melissa about a week ago, and she brought up the point, because she makes so many reptiles, that more men buy the reptiles than women. But maybe it's just in her case, but I thought it was interesting because it's not furry and cuddly, so that could be one of the reasons.
Could be, yeah. So I had drawn an iguana in one of these small frames just with ink and the watercolor, and it was one of the first ones I did. I just started doing this in the spring of this year, and one of the first ones I did was this iguana, because I also love the reptiles, and iguanas are one of my favorites. And it sat on my table every week for months and months, and no one hardly even looked at it. And then a woman came and bought it, and I guess she had a pet iguana, and so she loved iguanas, and she came and got it, and she was very excited about it. So
it is like this. I like to needle felt, and I needle felt a lot of animals, and I had a baby tapir, which is common in Brazil.
I love tapirs.
And it was there, and many times, either National or somebody, but who's going to know what animal this is? Because it's not even, something you see here in the States. And there came a woman, and she worked in biology, I think. She loved tapirs, and that's how it is.
Oh, I would have bought that one. I love tapirs too.
It was nice. It was kind of big. Chase Gregson is asking, your Instagram is called the Bluff Street Bandit. Is there a meaning behind that name?
Not a very interesting meaning. I'll tell you the story if you want to hear it.
Yeah, I'm all for stories.
So yeah, Bluff Street Bandit, that's the name of my Instagram account, and it's also the name of my store on Etsy.
Good.
And so the story behind that is in Nauvoo, Illinois, they have a pageant about the Mormons who settled that area, and it's sort of about the beginning of the church in that part of the world, which was the part of the world that it started in. So the beginning of the church overall. And part of this pageant was they show them building the city of Nauvoo, and they call out the name of a street. So the street that my brother and I were assigned to, my whole family was in this pageant. It was probably like 2009. I was like 13 or 14 years old. And so they had these big pieces of cloth. It was like a giant ribbon. And so it was like as far out as you could stretch your arms. And then it stretched. So I would hold one end like this, and my brother would hold the other end. We would throw it up in the air and run across to either end of the stage when they called out the name of the street, which was Bluff Street. And I was 14. My brother was probably, he must have been 12 or 13 at the time. So we were just messing around because we're having a good time behind the scenes, waiting until we got our cue. And so I took the big piece of fabric that represented Bluff Street, and I wrapped it around my face like a bandana, like an Old West bandit. And so I started calling I started calling myself the Bluff Street Bandit. And so that's where the name came from. And so it's not.
And it stayed.
It's not that interesting of a story. There's not. I don't know. I think it's kind of a dumb story, honestly. But when people ask, I'll tell it. But I do think the name sounds cool, so that's why I kept using it as the Bluff Street Bandit.
That's good. Let's see a few more pictures of your work and talk to people about it.
This is a business card for my illustration and design side business. So I thought it would be a fun idea if I ordered the business cards blank with nothing on them besides my name and my contact information. And then I went in and I drew on each card individually. And I thought it would be, you know, it's just kind of like a gimmick, a fun thing to do. I don't think people appreciated it as much as I hoped they would. Huh. But apes is another one of my favorite subjects that we haven't mentioned yet. The book Tarzan of the Apes is one of my favorite books. And so I love apes because, you know, they're so close to humans, and like you can recognize the emotion on an ape's face, like you see in that picture. That was from a book that I got about apes, and you know, you see the same kind of emotions that we feel. And so I've drawn hundreds of individual business cards, several with, you know, apes and a lot of birds and reptiles and amphibians as well, and then some just kind of crazy cartoons. Don't
they collect your business cards then? I would.
Yeah, so I think it has had the desired effect on a few people, you know, because I'll present them with my card and be like, this is a hand-drawn illustration, and they're like, oh, wow. But then a lot of the times people, you know, they'll just come up and grab them, and then, you know, it ends up in their back pocket in the laundry, and then, you know.
Oh, it happens, yeah.
So that's what happens
with. After all, it is a business card, but I would collect them and frame them later. Yeah. Let's see another one.
This one is inspired by a song that I really like from a band that I really like. The band is Oingo Boingo. Are you familiar with Oingo Boingo?
Yes, they're from the 70s, right? 70s or 80s?
Yeah, 80s. Yeah, 80s. So the name of the song is Reptiles and Samurai. And it's a great song. Look it up. It's one of my favorites. And so you see the reptile in the one corner there is the iguana that I talked about, and then up in the top is a samurai. And I just drew that because I really liked the song, and I wanted to have something with a picture of a reptile and a samurai.
How is that colored?
That's with the Copic markers that I mentioned for the way I did the same for my monsters and the Kerman picture that we showed earlier. So I sketch it out in pencil. Well, first I do like concept drawings in my sketchbook. Okay. So I do practices and like try and see how it'll fit together and what pieces will go where. And then a lot of what I draw on is the backer boards from a comic book. When you buy a comic book, it comes in a plastic sleeve, and they give you a little cardboard piece, that's all this is. So the comic book comes in here like that, and then this is just to keep it straight from wrinkling. And so I had a bunch of these because I buy a bunch of comic books, and I was like, I can draw on these. So that's what that one was drawn on, was one of the backer boards from a comic book in those Copic markers. And a few of the flowers that were in there. One of my favorite flowers is a peony. My grandma had them outside of her house. She still has them outside of her house. I had them in my front yard of the house where I grew up.
And you told me she's a good artist as well,
This is my other grandma.
Okay.
But she's also a good artist. She writes poetry. So she doesn't do visual art, but she has a lot of amazing poems that she has written.
That's cool.
But yeah, my father's mother, the one I mentioned before while we were talking, she is a great artist. She grew up in Germany in the 40s and 50s, so it was a tough place to grow up. But she does toll painting, which is like a Bavarian folk art. So she paints almost all the furniture in my house when I was growing up was painted by my grandmother. With these beautiful flowers and designs on there. And she does it to this day. She's almost 80 years old, I think. I don't know exactly how old she is. But she's got a young spirit, and she loves to do it. And I think I get a lot of my artistic sensibilities from her.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Breathe Tree is saying hello, enjoying the interview. Guest 807. What is your favorite part about working for a screen printing company?
My favorite part is when I get to take an idea that it has never existed before, and it only exists inside my head, and then I get to put that either onto paper or into the computer, and then through the process of screen printing, it becomes an actual physical object that you can put it on like a T-shirt. So like this, I had the idea I want a shirt with a potted plant on it because I like potted plants. I think they're fun. And so I had the idea, I drew it, and then just the process of converting an idea into an actual physical object is very exciting to me. I love doing it. And so that's my favorite part about working at a screen printing place is I get to take these ideas, either my own ideas or other people come in with ideas and I help them bring them into reality, which, you know, it's a powerful experience. It makes you feel powerful to create these new things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it may be a stupid idea, but is screen printing still done the same way, or is it all digital?
So a lot of the art is done digitally.
Okay.
The printing itself is manual. So we have, you know, the screens there.
That you put
about that big.
The ink and okay, so it's still the same. Just checking because it's been a while since last time. Let's talk about the business side. Tell me about the average price that you charge for your pieces.
So these small frames I do for $10 or $15. Since this one's a little bit bigger, this is about as big as they get for the tiny frames. I call them tiny frames in my log that I keep of what I make and what I sell. That's the name for them. So like this one is on the larger end, and that might be $15, and then a smaller one like this would be $10.
How long does it take you to make a drawing like that?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I never.
But you don't have a faint idea? More than an hour, more than a day?
So this one has a lot of detail because there's a lot of spots and wrinkles and lumps. And so that would take me a little longer than a smoother animal. Birds tend to be pretty smooth most of the time, or like a lumpy one. You know, like I said, I never timed it before. You know, I just kind of get lost in the process. But anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours, depending on how much I like doing it. If I'm not feeling it, if I'm not that into it, I'll try and wrap it up a little faster. So I don't. But if I get really into the process and it's an animal that I really like, I don't know exactly how long, but I spent quite a while on this Boreal Toad, just because I really liked the creases and the folds in his skin. I thought that was a lot of fun.
What about the big pictures?
The big pictures, I worked on this one. So the class was, I think, 6 weeks. And so I was working on this for 4 weeks. Wow. So this is the original painting here, and I would never sell it because this is one of my very first watercolors. And so, like, you'd have to give me $1 million if you wanted this. But I have prints of it that are available for $20 because it is larger and it's printed on a fancy paper.
That's cool.
But yeah, this is one of my favorite things that I've ever done.
Yeah, and the T-shirts, well, there are tons of T-shirts out there, but you sell well your T-shirts. Yeah,
so the first T-shirts I printed with the intention to sell were last year in the early summer, and I printed 4 designs, 24 of each. And I'm almost sold out of every single one of them now. And so this plant that I'm wearing now is one of the new ones that I created for this season. And then I also have the whale that we showed earlier who was yawning. That's another shirt that I have that's new for this season. So I sell the T-shirts for $20 a piece. And so yeah, some days are better than other days. It depends on who decides to show up to the market that day. But yeah, I've sold a few of them. Okay.
So we know that in your near future you're going to have a published cartoon, not cartoon.
A comic book.
Comic book. Yeah, I know that. I should know better. I read all Batman and Superman comic books. But what's next for you besides that? Do you know already?
I would like to do more comic books. Hopefully the reception of the Kerman comics will be good enough that I can put out some more issues with Velleity Studios. I'm also would like to do some children's books. My other grandmother that I mentioned earlier, who writes poetry, when I was in elementary school, her and I wrote a little children's book about a cat who wants to trade tales with other animals. And it was kind of like a fun facts thing about animals because I was into it even back then. I must have been 6 years old. And so the cat goes around and it asks all the different animals if it can trade tails because it's bored. It doesn't like its own tail anymore. Yeah. And so the animals, they explain, oh, no, it approaches a squirrel and it says, hey, I like your tail. Let's trade tails. But then the squirrel says, no, I need my tail so that I can balance when I run and jump between the branches of the trees. And then another one is like a peacock. He wants to trade tails with a peacock. And oh, I can't trade tails with you. I need my tail to attract the lady peacocks, the peahens. And so once I'm done with the first issue of Kerman, I want to illustrate that as a book, as a gift for my grandmother. And then I have a couple other ideas for children's books or comic books that I would like to work on. So I would like to kind of go into more of that direction of illustrating comics and children's books.
Have you ever thought about licensing your work at all or no?
I haven't. I don't know anything about that.
I have an interview about that with a lady that actually made millions of dollars out of that illustration. Yes, and take a look at Creativity in Focus, and she's very good at what she does, and that's all she focuses on. So she only creates work now for licensed products, and there are bags, there are mugs, there's everything you can think of. It's another way, because I'm a firm believer that if you're committed to make money with your art, you can to the point of you have a nice life with that. But you do have to think about what other channels of revenue can I have besides the original work. Because the original work, no matter what you're doing, felting, drawing, painting, it takes longer, it takes a lot of time. So it's not feasible for you to survive on that. Unless you live out of a van or something, right?
I wouldn't mind living out of a van.
When you're able to, I would be okay today.
That lines up with the punk rock lifestyle.
And it's a trend. Van living is a trend.
Yeah, I'm sure.
A lot of millennials do that because they're not interested in having stuff. They're interested in experiences, things. But anyway, you have to come with other channels of revenue. So, for example, with our consulting clients, we always said you need at least 7 different channels of revenue. So everything you're doing is fantastic, right? But that can be increased to a point that you don't have to be just relying on original work to sell. Bree is asking here, has Brandon said where he sells his work? So let me expand on that. If people want to know more about you, what are the right places for them to go? So
I will be at the Salt Lake Farmers Market this weekend. This is the last week I'll be there. And then I will be at the 9th and 9th Street Festival in Salt Lake City on September 15th. You can find my stuff on my Etsy store, which is Bluff Street Bandit. So it's etsy.com/shop/Bluff Street Bandit, I think. That's how you get to that. Or you can follow me on Instagram, which is Bluff Street Bandit, or Kerman Comics is also. Can you spell Kerman Comics? Oh yeah, it's KERMANNCOMICS. So that's the one that's specifically dedicated to Kerman and the comic book. And then Bluff Street Bandit is anything and everything that I decide to make. That's good. So a venue for everything. So do you go a lot to shows related to Comic-Con or FanX or stuff like that? I just barely started working on comics, so I haven't been to a lot of comic to the cons or the shows for that sort of thing. What I've been to mostly is kind of local markets and street festivals. Earlier this year, I was at the Craft Lake City DIY Festival. Like about a week or so ago? That was probably the biggest thing I've ever been in, which was exciting. Was it good? Kind of? I didn't have a great spot, so I'm going to blame it on that. Okay. But yeah, I've been doing pretty well at the Farmers Market. And then I went to the 9th and 9th. This will be my second year at the 9th and 9th Street Festival. And we did pretty well at that last year, and so I hope and got our fingers crossed for this year as well. That's so good. Any final words you would like to tell people about you or your work? Thanks for having me on here. I appreciate any, follow me on Instagram, Bluff Street Bandit. Check out my Etsy store. Come see me at the Farmers Market or at the 9th and 9th.
I would ask for one of his business cards.
Keep creating.
Do you still have them?
Yeah.
Hand draw?
So I have a few of them. I kind of stopped doing that because it took a lot of time, and so I have a bunch of pre-printed drawings on there now. So, but I have a few of the hand-drawn ones left. So if you come to 9th and 9th and ask for one, I can give it to you.
Yeah, or follow him on Instagram and say, hey, I saw that interview, send me one.
Oh yeah, if you buy anything from me on Etsy, I haven't made a ton of sales on Etsy, but that's because I haven't really been promoting it very consistently. But what I've done, I call them Thankphibians, which is a little cartoon frog, and he says thank you, and I draw that straight onto the business card. So that's anything you buy from my Etsy shop comes with that or original piece of art on the business card
so
there.
Cool. That's so
and
nice.
There's a friend of mine, shout out to Lauren, who he specifically requested, he bought something and it came with a Thankphibian, and then he wanted more. So I think I drew 3 more just because he wanted more of them, because they're just like cute little cartoons, like a salamander or a frog or something.
That's so cool. I want to show them one more thing that I just seen. You have that water bottle there?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about it.
This is a water
put it
bottle.
over here so we can give a close-up.
So some of the stickers that I've made, like this is the...
there, whoops. Yeah.
If I can get it in there. There we go. The Reptiles and Samurai is available as a sticker. This one here is a tufted titmouse, which is a drawing that I did, and I made it into a sticker.
Beautiful.
And then this is the company I worked for, Inktware, and this is a design that I did for them with more birds and flowers, because those are some of my favorite things to draw. And there's a couple others. This is from a guy, his name is Evan, I can't remember his last name, but he was at the DIY festival, and he's got a lot of cool stuff. This is Panda Propaganda. It's another local artist. They've got a lot of stuff at Unhinged in Sugar House.
Nice.
And I really liked this picture, so I stuck that on there.
That's a cool water mug.
Yeah, so I've got, like I talked about my jackets earlier, and I like a lot of patches and pins, because it could just like accessorize a product. So I did the same kind of thing with my water bottle. So
nice.
No one else has a water bottle that's quite like mine.
That's fantastic. And Bree is saying thank you for sharing your art. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yes, it was a pleasure having you here. You are on the right road, that's for sure.
Cool.
And I hope your comic book becomes a huge success.
I hope so too.
Yes, and for you guys, thank you so much for participating and being here with us. This podcast stays wherever you're watching, so you can share this at any time with artists or people that need to get inspired by the work of this amazing artist, Brandon Pope. And I'll see you back here next Tuesday. Thank you so much.